Let me begin with the most important words I can say today. Congratulations to the distinguished graduates of the great class of 2019. It was only 53 years ago that I was in your shoes. So I know you've had an amazing experience here. You have mastered the case method during your time on campus and the art of asking tough questions, like, why don't the printers ever work here? Why on earth do they use the case method to teach accounting? Who thought of that? And the toughest question of all, how many people does it take to finish a scorpion bowl at Hong Kong? For the record, the correct answer there is more than one. HBS really does have a special place in my heart. Not only did I graduate from here, but so did my daughter, Emma. My foundation teamed up with the B School and the K School to create a Merrill Leadership Program run by Professor Abdullah. And my father, who died a year before I was accepted to HBS, has his name on the building that stands behind Baker, an honor that would have thrilled him. He and my mother raised my sister and me just 5 miles from here in Medford, Massachusetts. And that was convenient because I never would have made it through the B School without my mother nearby. She typed all my papers. 5 decades later, I still can't type or spell. But I do have the good sense to have someone proof my tweets. I wondered whether you'd get that one. We moved to Medford from Brookline, a few miles from here, when I was 4 years old. And I can still remember my first day in our new home. A boy from up the street clunked me over the head with a rock, and I went in bleeding to my mother, which is to say I learned about Boston hospitality at a young age. I guess I had a hard head even back then. And even though I grew up just a trolley car ride away, when I first arrived on campus, I felt like I'd entered a whole new world. Suddenly, I was in classes with friends whose families had built major companies and had famous last names. And that was a pretty radical change from my childhood. My mother once told me, we never knew anybody whose name was in the newspaper unless it was in the crime or the obit section. And I can't say I spent a lot of time across this lawn in Baker Library. My transcript is evidence of that. I was always one of those who made the top half of the class possible. I was more likely to be over the bridge at what is now the Russell House Tavern. Back then it was a German beer hall called the Wursthaus. It's where I first learned that it's better not to watch sausages being made. Now I'm sure many of you have already lined up a job, but for those who haven't, don't worry. I was a month away from graduating from the B School, and I still had no idea of what I'd wanted to do. I asked a classmate, Steve Fenster, for advice. He said, go to Wall Street. And I said, I don't know anything about finance. He said, just apply for jobs at Salomon Brothers and Hutzler and a firm named Goldman Sachs. And I said, who are they and what do they do? Yes. I was a B School kid who had never heard of Goldman Sachs. A lot has changed since then. Goldman, I remembered, flew me down to New York and offered me a starting job at $14,000 a year. Not bad pay for 1966. Salomon Brothers sent me a train ticket and offered me a job for only $9,000. After the interviews, I thought I would fit much better into Salomon. But I told the senior partner there, John Goodfriend, I couldn't afford to pay the rent on that salary. Rent in New York was really expensive back then, $120 a month, as I remember. He said, how much do you need? I didn't want to be piggy about it, so I said at the spur of the moment, $11,500. And he said, okay, $9,000 salary, and a $2,500 loan. And he walked out of the room. It's a true story. I didn't know what to do. So I showed up 2 years later and I just started working. So much for my negotiating skills. For the record, my first year's bonus was $500 loan forgiveness, and my second year bonus was forgiveness for the other $2,000. And just remember that when you think you're getting stiffed on a bonus negotiation. But seriously, when you weigh a job offer, my message to you is, even later in life, when you're considering a career change, leave salary out of the equation. Make decisions based on the quality of the opportunity and where you will have the most fun and the most room for growth. What's important for your career is not your starting salary. It's your development and happiness, and the cash will come later on. So let me offer you a few ideas on how you can help lead the way. First, start with yourself, wherever your career leads you. Be honest with your colleagues, clients, and contractors. Don't ever try to take advantage of them. Second, when applying for a job, align yourself with companies that are engaged in philanthropy. Third, give back on your own and don't wait. America must always be a place where it's possible to get rich through perspiration and innovation. But it must never be a place where the middle class steadily loses ground and where many of those feel trapped at the bottom. Unfortunately, that is the path we are on, and the further we go down that path, the more likely that the most extreme voices on both left and right will attract large following with power and do real harm to our country. Now, I'm an optimist, and we will change direction, I think, partly because of how business leaders are already taking on one of the biggest challenges that we face, climate change. Today, I'm glad to announce that HBS will hold an alumni conference next year on investing in the age of climate change with Bloomberg Philanthropy's support. It's another example of where doing right and doing good are aligned. Market forces are among the most powerful tools in the world. But whether it's climate change or income inequality or gun violence or any other issue, those forces must be guided by ethical leaders, or else the market's invisible hand can turn into a clenched fist. And when society's most defenseless take it on the chin, I can promise you they will fight back with unpredictable consequences and demand a better deal, as they should. As graduates of the Harvard Business School, you have the ability to help our nation do all of that and much more, and I sincerely hope that you will. So tonight, have one last Scorpion Bowl, and tomorrow, start helping to restore and renew our national sense of integrity. Our country needs you, and you can do it. Congratulations and best of luck.